would like to call to order the January 18th Planning Commission meeting. Could I get a roll call, please, Brandy?
Yes. Culhane. Ford.
Here.
Brink.
Here.
Case.
Here.
And Aletsky, Dolly, Dargis Johnson, Hanson, and Spire are absent. We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Third item on the agenda is invitation for public comment participant submittal. If there's anything not on the agenda that someone wishes to talk about, there will be time after the regular agenda. Just let Brandy know. On to item 4 is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Fifth item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 7th meeting. Did I get a motion and a second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Ford moves.
Motion carries.
Second.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 7th meeting.
What do we have? I did. Oh, I see. I muted us, possibly? Okay. Okay, I muted us. I always do that when I mean to mute the app or the person online.
That was trippy. Yeah, all right. I have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Sixth item on the agenda is our regular agenda. 6A is commission consideration of resolution number 23-4. It's a concept plan for the Sinclair Third Edition. Brandy, could you take over, please?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. So this concept plan before you is submitted by Colin DeYoung, who's the project agent for Sinclair Land and Cattle LLC, who are the owners of the property south of Jensen Avenue and across the street there from the Montgomery Furniture site, where they have also transformed that area into Sinclair Square, where the new addition of the commercial building there along 212 has been added. And we've seen a PUD plan come forward for that. So then now this area here that they are conceptually planning is what was previously or historically known as the Moriarty property. So this is now an addition to the Sinclair Square, and this is the third edition. So you can see as well that there are 2 zoning designations, with there being C3 highway commercial to the north, and that being along Jensen Avenue or 10th Avenue, whichever one you want to call it. And then I-1 light industrial further to the south. And so how they have the property planned is, and I'll flip this so we can look at it, to, with the north being north. So the area here, this will be the commercial C3 development, and then also on June 12th of this last year, there was a conditional use for apartments approved for this specific area by the Board of Adjustment. That was approved 6-0, and then that was for it to allow for the conditional use of apartments when this area develops. Now, obviously, when they're granted a conditional use, they have to use that within 1 year. So all of this falls into place with them coming forward and showing the concept plan and having that up for approval so that they can move forward with building permit issuance. Or actually, they still need to finish the subdivision process, which will be the preliminary plan and the construction plans for the infrastructure improvements, and then the plat. And then once they get it platted, then they can come forward with building permits to be able to lock down that conditional use per se. And then the transitioning then back to the I-1 light industrial to the south. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Brandy. And the zoning of C3 and I-1, that's the existing zoning that it already is, isn't it?
Yep.
So there won't need to be a rezoning, or potentially not?
Nope.
Is there a restriction on the number of apartments that can be located in C3 as far as density? Is it more than 50, 60 apartments in a single unit, or how does that work?
No, it really just comes down to the off-street parking requirements, setbacks, things of that nature. And then however it impacts their different building codes with having a mixed-use building, like the different types of uses.
You have two really large commercial lots. Do we really expect those lots to stay as large as they are for the commercial development? Or are we going to be doing other subdivision of those lots into small lots? Is that something that we deal with then at the preliminary plan? Or how does that work? I mean, conceptually, we're saying it's commercial. Well, you've got two lots that's as big as the mall combined. And I'm just curious, what kind of commercial density are we looking at in there when you have a single lot? From a concept, I understand commercial, but it seems to me that we might be needing to look a little deeper.
So I think that, and you see this in other commercial developments too, where even like what the city just rezoned on Highway 20, where you want to keep your options open for the type of development that may go in there. And obviously, if they were to do further subdivision, like they did with the Montgomery's lot, then they came back for the PUD and then replatted, because they're going to need, now when it's commercial, you can have multiple buildings on a commercial lot, but when they submit that for building permits, like, we're gonna have to make sure that they have connectivity for the vehicular, pedestrian, all of that, that's making sense. So,
Because at the concept plan, we are only really concerned with the collector routes that are going through the development, or should we also be looking at, local streets or connectivity into that development? I'm just, when we see, concept plans for residential development, we're basically seeing things more defined than what you're seeing here in the development. It's just more of an education piece for me, and how the city wants to approach that.
so with the commercial development, I would say, like, they're not proposing that there's going to be public infrastructure beyond 11th and 14th, which that's all that we care about when we're looking at the concept plan. If they want to come back and they want to subdivide this differently and then add local streets in there, they'd have to bring the concept plan back. So presumably, they would be doing private streets or just access easements, depending on the type of construction or development that they have in there.
Because to the north, we were originally private streets that have been now changed into public streets on the development to the north, or is that all private streets flowing through there?
No, so 11th is that is a public right-of-way.
Right, but you understand where I'm going with my thought process, that when Econo Foods was there, and it was just basically a parking lot, and it was laid out as a single large lot use, that's what you're looking here to the south, and then 20 years later, we end up going through this and having to redefine and look at connectivity through that development to other public infrastructure. I'm just saying, are we being short-sighted by being as broad in concept that we're talking about now?
I don't think so in the concept plan phase. I think that it's better that it leaves their options open, and then as they get down to their phases, they can start, subdividing that further. And really crafting it to whatever is being developed there. And then making sure and that's something that we look at very closely too, as far as the, like even the Plains Apartments to the north, for an example. That is one development, but they're 3 separate lots. And the reason for doing that is really just down the road so each building has its own utility connection, it meets its own off-street parking requirements and whatnot, because it just allows for better options as the future goes on. For property ownership, utility maintenance, all of those things. So those are all things that we will dive into, because when that property was rezoned, it was just one lot at that time too. So I think that in the concept plan phase for commercial development especially, that there's not a problem with it being a large lot, and we'll continue to
Because,
go through our process as the development
because
progresses.
realistically, this is the only time that we as the planning commission will see this, because if we can generally have a concept, then the design is then approved by staff with then a subsequent plat, which may or may not be approved by elected officials. It could be just a staff review.
Yep, but if there are any, if there's a need for additional public right-of-way or private streets, then they have to amend the concept plan, so then it would come back to the plan commission.
Brandy, are there any current or potential drainage issues in this area?
In this area, not that I'm aware of. I know there's some further to the south and west. And so that is something that we worked on. So there's a portion of 14th Avenue that was extended, and so we did look into that at that time, or even the development that has happened there. So, because the drainage channel and the floodplain is actually, or more of the floodway per se, it's not an actual floodway, but the drainage path actually happens further to the west. But that's why they're showing this area, and it's not typical that you have regional detention in a commercial, or really just in a non-residential district. But I think that this is where, this is low, so just providing options for a regional detention area, because that's where the water naturally goes.
Okay, thanks.
I will open the public hearing. If there is anyone that wishes to speak in favor against this topic, please approach the mic and state your name for the record.
Hey, good. You can go over to this one. You just have to, I don't know what happened to that chair. Yeah. And then introduce yourself.
All right, can you hear me? Jesse Nygaard, and I have the shop down by the green space. And my concern is the drainage. With the new roads that are going in, is there going to be any type of storm system in that new road? Because from Highway 81 to the east on 14th right now, there currently is no storm system in there, so all that water comes and collects in this low spot. Or it's supposed to go in the natural drainage way, which is in between my property and the property to the north.
Are you saying you've had issues with water?
I have
or
had
you're-
issues, yes, I have had issues.
So
I'm
what
gonna
are
get,
they?
I'm gonna get to them, but I'm curious as to if there's gonna be storm system in this and where the water is gonna go.
So that is, we don't get into drainage too much with the concept plan, other than just where it goes currently, or the natural drainage route. But this will have the storm sewer that will route it, and then this pond in the drainage area will be sized accordingly to hold the runoff then that's coming from the development and releasing it at the pre-developed rate. So that will be designed according to the development. And then the streets, if the streets are all running there.
Sure. So I guess if you go to the next, let's see, if you want to go to page 4 first, this might even be page 4, I don't know. Or sheet 4 of the concept, I guess it would be. So we're on 3, go one more. So, right here, that is indicating to me that the water is gonna drain from here along the south side of my property over to where it connects with the property owner to the south of me. And currently the water is draining, which I guess you can't really see it.
Pre-developed.
Okay, where's the one after developed?
Then here's post-developed where they are, it's gonna end up, but it's going to be held at that pond and then released, because that's the natural route. the drainage route right now to that channel.
Okay, so I guess when we do get a lot of rain, all the water, it collects in that low area, like they're talking, which makes sense. It also does not drain to the south of me. That property owner has an inlet that is at least 12 inches higher than where my culvert is at from this entire natural drainage way to the north of me. So all the water that comes down there sits right there, and what happens is it backs up onto Alan Bredwick's property, and then it flows over into this low area to the east of us. So if we're gonna collect all this extra water into that area, and we have all this water that already doesn't drain down this natural drainage way to the south, that is supposed to go down to the river on sheet 6, I think it was. Or if you just scroll down, I guess you can see it too, but this red line right here, from about that point to the south, doesn't drain. That is all filled in, and this drainage way ends about where her cursor is at right now. And that entire drainage way is full of machinery, trees, rocks, you name it, anything is in there. And my concern is the drainage, because I don't want to have to deal with a wet lot for, I mean, we already deal with it, and then now we have even more water that's coming off of the, however many acres that area is, and the new roads that are going in. So if there'd be some way that we can at least get the water to drain to the south of me, that'd be great. I wouldn't have any problems. And I'm not against this development or anything at all. I'm all for it. I'm just worried about the drainage issues.
Brandy, so at this point in time, the job of the planning commission here is to either recommend or approve the concept plan that we're okay with the intended use and the general road layout of public infrastructure. How do you address this gentleman's concern beyond this point that drainage issues are going to be taken into account on, not only on his land, but if we are going to be pushing water to the south, which according to him and his testimony, that it'll back up anyway. So how does he assured that somebody beyond, staff, or where is his voice in that process?
Yes, and so we are very aware of that drainage issue. Like I said, when we were dealing with 14th Avenue and that, well, hasn't been installed yet, but the construction there to the north with the new contractor shops. So the difficult thing is that Jesse's property is right on the edge of city limits. So the property to the south is in the county. And this does, now I believe that he fixed the culvert. It was smashed.
I don't know if you would necessarily
Restricting.
say it was fixed, but I've had many people out there, had the county out there, and they just say they can't do anything about it because it's silted in and there's nothing that anybody can do to get the water to flow through there, even though his culvert is 12 inches higher than where it needs to be.
I guess my point is getting back to, as we're moving forward with looking at this from a concept plan and we're looking at drainage, and we're saying eventually the drainage from that area is supposed to go south of the city limits.
So
How do we, and we know that's gonna eventually potentially cause a problem because we have no jurisdiction in that area. And it does cause a problem then for a citizen of the city.
So
How do we address that?
I really believe that this development, yes, there will be more impervious surface, but then they are going to be detaining it and releasing at the pre-developed rate. And all of those, the hydraulic analysis, all of that will be done at the preliminary plan phase. So that's really when, and when we're reviewing the preliminary plan and those drainage plans, that's the time where we're making sure that somebody is not getting additional water. But I think that it's appropriate to bring up and keep that on the radar, that drainage is a large issue in this area, but I do see them as separate issues. And I'll follow up with Jesse too, because I know we had worked at that last year. And just if there's still issues.
how do you assuage these fears? I mean, that's just what I'm looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is an interesting thing looking at the pre-developed LiDAR survey, up on the northern part of the property, you got 1715, 1716 elevations. Then the pond, the low area is about 1710 or 1711. And then farther south, there's a few shots that are, 1712. So it does look like even that pond is lower than some of the existing ground just to the south of it. It is kind of the low spot in both directions.
And the two engineers are already discussing in the back, so I was just gonna ask if they had anything to add. But really, the drainage component, I think it's good to acknowledge it at this point. But at the concept plan phase, it isn't something that we have a lot of detail on at this point, so they'll continue to look at that.
But conceptually, the planning commission's responsibility is to take a look at a piece of property, and if we know that there are inherent drainage issues, are we saying that without more information to understand how those can be addressed, should we be moving forward with the project? And that's the role of the planning commission in this step of the phase. And-
But they
Brandy,
show all of the they show all the requirements that they
Right,
need.
Yeah.
Doesn't the concept plan .5 drainage and grading, it says it shall include detailed data for all runoff within the proposed development phase. Is there a,
In the concept plan,
it's number 5
okay.
in the ordinance? And that was my question. I didn't really see a detailed plan for all runoff within the proposed development phase.
And they adopted. So then we have to reference the post-construction, post-construction BMP manual.
But should it not be included in the plan?
No, because
It
What-
says shall include.
so that is what the drainage information that is provided, because how comfortable are you guys reading detailed engineering hydraulic analysis?
I don't have to, I just have to ask you to explain it, or a person in your department.
I don't read them either. We'd have to have engineering.
Right.
And they don't, so that is where, let me pull up the engineering design standards here.
I guess while you're doing it, I'm presuming that engineering staff has reviewed the information that is required at the concept plan level, and in their opinion, it meets the city standards of what, otherwise it wouldn't be here.
Correct.
And actually, as I look at this more, it looks like most of this water flows to the north and out to the east side of the property, and it's just the southwestern corner that flows down. Even that's in the pre and the post-developed. So most, or a large portion of it is going out towards that drainage channel then that's
Heavy-
the
A
northeast.
lot of the commercial stuff on the north end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
And that's where, I mean, the idea of when we amended the concept plan, like, it was to keep it high level, especially the technical drainage and engineering details, because that's what engineers are licensed to review.
That's my interest. I'm looking at the ordinance for the concept plan. And it says it requires in the concept plan to have general layouts of streets, general layout of pedestrian connectivity, right-of-way width, street names, type of street section, the sanitary sewer connections, the water connections, drainage and grading. And I I don't see those specifics that are itemized in this ordinance, in this concept plan. Whether I like the proposal or not, I'm looking at the ordinance and trying to compare the proposal to what's required.
So we have a checklist, and when we review these, I mean, all of these items are on there. Which one are you not comfortable?
Oh, I don't see a general layout of pedestrian connectivity,
The sidewalks?
not in the big area up above.
No.
So that's my,
Because we don't, the plan commission is only reviewing right-of-ways. We're not getting into, like, we are not a building permit.
I know, Brandy.
phase right now.
I'm only saying what is listed in the ordinance. Street names are listed in here. Perhaps then this needs to be reviewed compared to what's actually happening and to what we thought we were getting.
So we do, this has been through the design review team for 2 hearings. We have checklists in our application. If these things weren't included, it would not be in front of you.
Diana, I think if you look at page 13 of 18, that indicates the sidewalks, which would be the pedestrian one that you're referencing.
Okay.
So that, in the right-hand corner, or bottom right-hand corner, it's got the street layout. It's got the names of the streets.
Okay, thank you.
So I
Thank you,
think,
Leland.
and the way I read the street there, it's a cross-section of the layout, which indicates where the sidewalks are. So basically on each side of 11th and of 14th. So, I mean, so there's the street names.
Then
And
it,
I think the utilities is on the next page. Correct me if I'm wrong, 14 is,
Well, and if you get, so we review, staff reviews this with the design review team, and this has went twice. And the checklist that we have is also on the ordinance, so in preparation of the meeting, that is something, if you guys want to go through it as well, that's an option.
that would be so helpful for me to see the checklist, because you're right.
It's-
I don't know.
It's the exact thing that you have on ordinance, in ordinance.
All of this?
That you were just referencing?
Okay.
Yep,
right.
that's everything.
And so in order to find the proposed drainage and grading plan,
And Diana and I can definitely go through this with you.
no, I'm just curious to know if that was addressed as it states in the ordinance. If
So
you
I'm-
say it was, then that's fine.
And I have, but I'm gonna pull it up here for, and like I said, if things aren't addressed, they wouldn't be in front of the board. Okay. Chapter 11 here. So then this is referenced in our post-construction manual. For the drainage list that they are required to show in the concept plan. All right, so this is the preliminary drainage plan, and then these are the items that this is also on our website. It's referenced in the ordinance as a cross-reference here, so when it says the proposed development phase in accordance with the preliminary drainage plan and the adopted post-construction stormwater best management practices manual. Chapter 24 also found as an appendix in Chapter 11 in the currently adopted engineering design standards. So then these are the drainage items that need to be addressed, which they all are with what they're showing in the concept plan.
So this gentleman is assured that those things have been looked at and the drainage is being
he's
as
assured it's not going to be any worse than it is today, right?
Yes,
That's the
and-
summary is, not that it's going to be better than it is today, but it won't be any worse. That's what the concept plan indicates. On page, I think, 15 would be pre, and then 16 is post.
Yes.
Yeah, and as I look at it a little bit more, I do see they have drainage areas with discharge rates of the Q2 and the Q100 for the pre and the post.
Right.
And they both show that,
They're
yeah, that they're there, that they're the same or less, post-construction than they would be pre-construction.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Nygaard, that I wish we had an answer for the issue that you brought with us. What our ordinance requires is that we don't make it worse.
Well, and
That's
like I
what this
said,
indicates.
this has been an ongoing issue that I believe is separate from this development.
And I guess where I was going for my entire thing is I realize what you guys do behind the scenes. It's just sometimes it needs to be brought out so the public can understand that, yes, you guys have done the background check, you've done the work on it. And when you come and bring it to us, I think we know that you've done that, but sometimes it's just nice to let the public know that you guys, what you guys do, because it's a heavy lift on your guys' backs, outside of the public view.
Yes, it has months of review. So
Right.
rest assured, every concept plan.
So what you're saying then basically is any water that accumulates in that area is going to be released at what's the predetermined rate? More than what's already out there or less or the same?
And these are questions that actually, like, the plan commission can't answer because we will get the hydraulic analysis information at the preliminary plan phase. So I would say that because you're informed of the project, to stay in touch with the engineering office as they are doing the review of the preliminary plan.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll do my best to keep up on it. I guess my only concern is, just so everybody's aware, that if more water gets put into the area that already doesn't drain, then it's my problem. That's the only issue I have with it. So if you're telling me that it's gonna be taken care of, I'll take your word for it, but still dealing with the same problem. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, yep, that's good.
Being that we, as a city, are aware of the issue, and you guys are aware, as our recommendation from the planning commission would be just to keep him informed as the process goes through, so there are no surprises. That would be my recommendation.
Yes.
Before you approve the preliminary plan, that maybe, and he has a concern, you can at least have it explained to him that it's not gonna be any worse than it is today. And,
Yes.
and I can't tell you that because I look at it and it's all Greek.
Well, and the thing is that there's a drainage issue that affects his property today that we don't usually inform other property owners other than the property owner of who's applying for the things, but that's fine. We can do that. But it's still it's going to still be an ongoing, like, that problem has existed.
Yeah. If it's not the city, maybe it's the developer. It's just being a good neighbor. That's all I'm saying. Just being a good neighbor. And whether we're initiating it or in the review, before you approve the preliminary plan, you say, you should, Colin, you should probably reach out to this guy just so he can see what you're gonna be doing. That's just being a good neighbor.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion from the board for discussion.
Go ahead, second.
There's a motion and a second. One thing I would say, is just looking at the street layout, I think 14th makes sense as that's where it goes to the west. But going east, it's gonna run right into Watertown Utilities. I don't know if that is makes the most sense for where that road should go going east, if we ever wanted to connect it to, I guess maybe there isn't anything to connect over there because there's a stream, but that was just one comment I had, is I don't know if the street connectivity going east on 14th will go anywhere.
Yes, and that's something we discussed as the DRT, as the design review team as well. But we figured that as the wastewater facility expands and grows, to have the option for additional access, so to just have that right-of-way reserved already in the development. We don't anticipate that segment of 14th ever be built, and if it is built, that it would end up being a driveway to access the wastewater facility. But it won't, when they come forward with their plat, and development agreement and construction plans, it'll show 11th Street will just, 14th Avenue will end at 11th Street.
Be planted but not constructed.
Yep.
Understood.
Are there any other comments from the board members? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Brandy?
All right, Kays,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Cohane.
Motion carries. Seventh item on the agenda is open public comment. Is there anything not on the agenda that,
No,
any?
and nothing that I heard from the crowd.
All right, number 8 is new business. Do we have any new business?
I guess I can give you guys, I was able to talk with Lisa Carrico, our city attorney, on our process for bringing the recodification and the amendments to Title 21 forward. And we do plan on having small group meetings with Plan Commission so that we can go through the major changes before bringing it to the public hearing, just because there's a lot of content. And then obviously small groups just to avoid a quorum. But then keeping that as brief as possible, but just having the opportunity to go through it individually. And then we'll be getting that. Heath and I will hopefully wrap up our review and brainstorm kind of process with it of what's being proposed so far. And then, so we anticipate those will be like mid-February. And then, so probably by the end of January here, which is coming up, I'll send out invites to get availability
Will
and
we
then see how we can
have
form.
access to the information prior to the meetings?
Yes. Yep. So when I send out hopefully towards the end of January, I'll send out the proposed draft and with the invite for the different meetings that will work with your schedules. So that you guys will have probably 2 weeks then to be able to start diving into that on your own time too. But we'll try to be thorough with it when we review it as groups so that
What's the,
you guys are aware of all the changes.
what's the expected timeline from initial planning commission review to approval and implementation? What's your guys' hopeful timeline? That we would be in place by June, or what are you guys thinking?
By May. That it would be, because we would like for it to be in place before the next construction season, which we're gonna be cutting it close. But how we have the timeline laid out right now, the second reading at council would be at the end of April. So just so that we're so close and all of these things take time, where we just don't wanna be in limbo with a code or with our Title 21, our zoning ordinance, as we go into the next season. And yes, there's planning that takes place and everything on the front end, but
Do you see the changes that staff are proposing to be of a nature that they could take some rabbit holes, which does not get you to your May deadline?
and I know where you're going with that, of breaking it up, but that is not the process that we have decided to go with. So,
In the end, though, it's still the planning commission and the city council's decision. I mean, if we get into the conversation through these meetings that 85% of this is like a no-brainer, but there's 15% of really heavy lifting to be done, everything gets dragged down and we end up not approving the ordinance because we can't agree on 15%, and now it causes a supermajority of the city council to move forward with it.
Yeah.
To me, I think we would be smarter to take what we all agree upon, get that, if that gets us 90% there, and then if there's 10% we want to fight about, then that's,
Discuss.
Yes.
Discuss.
fighting is not a bad word.
and yes, I think that is something I don't foresee. I think the proposed amendments are they're improvements and creating less open to interpretation. So
More form over substance.
yes. Yes, so it's just the things that we run into throughout the years where just to making things more specific. But there shouldn't be a lot of really heavy lifts that need a lot of like study or research. It's a lot of, even our charts, for the district regulations, like just improvements, I hope. But I've been working on them, so.
Are you doing more visuals?
Somewhat, no, not really. I have a few.
Good.
We might need a consultant for something like that, like a complete overhaul. So I did what I could here, or we did as a division in Public Works, so.
No, I appreciate that update.
Right, that's not easy. No.
And every day it feels like there's something more that could be added to. There's just a lot. And yeah, so we will be meeting with you guys on that soon.
Awesome. Any old business?
No,
Any executive session?
nope.
I will adjourn us. We're adjourned.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.